Hello cuties. It's time for stats. Originally I was going to make a different video this week, but then I got depressed while making that video and decided, never mind, we're not gonna make that video. So instead we're gonna do something that makes me happy. And what makes me happy besides books? Spreadsheets. I love spreadsheets so very much. It's weird because I am a chaos gremlin, but I love the order and beauty that is data entry. So last year I made my own from complete scratch. This year I'm using one that I have altered from another creator because they had amazing formulas that I needed to learn, because I'm not an expert in Google Sheets or Excel, but I'm very self-taught and I like learning the formulas and things. Not an expert though, so I'm always looking for other people's formulas to, you know, learn and eventually steal for myself. But I am open to helping people make their spreadsheets in a variety of ways. If you ever need to, I have a Ko-fi page and you can contact me if you need me to help you make a spreadsheet. I do it for my friends and help if there's something specific you need tracked. I can help you do that. Okay, so in this video we're going to be talking about my stats for the year. We're going to talk about some superlatives of which month was the best for such and such, and the #1 book in each month. And maybe that will help me decide who's the best book of 2023, because I read a lot of good books in 2023 and I can't decide, and even deciding who was the best book in each month was really hard because I had a lot of really good reads this last year. So anyway, let's get into the stats. We're gonna look at all the graphs that everything inputted into, and be warned, it's a lot. So first off, how many books did I read? I read 278 books. That's the best I've ever done in my life. I just read a lot. Now, I don't want anyone to feel bad about anything that I'm doing. I'm an insane person, okay? I listen to audiobooks like crazy because I have a job that lets me do that while I'm working, because it's not a job where I have to like do physical labor and be aware. It's a little office job and I can do that. I also don't have a family to take care of except for Mambo, and I don't have a spouse or anything, and I barely have any friends that live in the same state as me. So my social life is not impeded, and so my social life is really me and books. So I don't want anyone to be like, I don't know how you can possibly do that. That's how. I don't have a life, and that's how. So for the year, I read the most in October because, like a crazy person, like I said, I'm an insane person, I read a book a day in October. So 31 days, 31 books. Did I read a book every single day? No, but I did read 31 books in total. So just to help you out. My worst month was August with 18, which sounds hilarious. Like, oh, my worst month was 18. But it was in comparison to all these other ones. So on average, I read about 23 books per month. That's my average. Pages, we almost got there. We almost broke 100,000 pages, but we read 99,439 pages throughout the year. Again, October was the best one with 10,877, but March, a close call with 10,550 there, which meant I was reading on average 272 pages per day. And also that's, I forgot to mention, it's like 0.76 books per day as well that I was reading based on these averages. The audiobooks, like I said, I read a ton of audiobooks. I listen to a ton of audiobooks. I know there's pedantic people out there who are gonna get mad about that. It's the same thing. It activates the same part of your brain. Anyway, I actually did better in March with audiobooks, 215 hours in March, and then I in total listened to 2,019 and a half hours, which is about almost 6 hours, 5.53 hours per day of listening, which is roughly a lot of my work day. How I read these books was mostly through Libby, which is my library app. If you don't know Libby, Libby is fantastic, and you can get, you know, your library card for free. and get books for free. You can get both ebooks and audiobooks. I don't read ebooks very much though. That'll be shown a little bit here. And I do audiobooks constantly, and there's also some great libraries that are out of your own state that will let you get a library card and you can expand your library that way. I read 82 physical, like regular copies. 3 of them I paid for on Kindle. 38 were on Scribd, which is now Everand, which is another audiobook service. I like it better than Audible because it's not pay per book, it's pay by prescription, and subscription, and it's like $12 a month, and I get a lot out of that. So 3 of them were like first edition fancy copies. 9 were author PDFs that were sent to me. 10 books were special editions, so usually my Fairy Loots and stuff. 1 I got on Kindle Unlimited. 4 of them were ARCs, and I did read 9 on Audible. I did have to crack and use Audible this year. I don't like using Audible, but I did. And then 1 on Hoopla, which is another library app, but my library for my Hoopla app does not have a very big library of things that I read, so I very rarely use it, but I have it just in case, and I needed it for that one because I know that was for The Archive by V.E. Schwab, which was a 23 of 2023. Formats, like I said, mostly audiobook, 164 audiobooks, 59 were paperbacks, 40 were hardcovers, and 16 were ebooks. Now granted, that's way better than normal for me, but I have gotten into reading ARCs and helping other authors, other indie writers who will send me their PDF for ARC reading or beta reading and stuff, so I do count those. As well, I mean, obviously they're all reading, so those are how I read a lot of my ebooks. I'm getting into more ARC reading lately because I now have a NetGalley account, and I'm trying to get through the ebook thing. It's just difficult. I just don't connect with our parent publishers. So I put the big 5. I also put Paper Mill Press, which is my classics collection. I have small or indie presses here, and then fully self-published. So the books I read the most were published out of Penguin, with HarperCollins at 50. So Penguin was at 61. And then behind them was Macmillan with 43. Hachette with 31. Self-pubbed, I read 25 self-pubbed. Small press was 36. Sorry, I skipped over that. Simon & Schuster with only 18, and then 15 Paper Mill Press Classics, which is Book Outlet's press, I guess. It's not owned by a big, one of the big 5. If they're smaller publishers, so these are all like the imprints and stuff, I do believe besides self-published, Tor is the winner. So Tor is owned by Macmillan. So 19 books were Tor alone, and then there's my Paper Mill Press. Harper Teen with 11. I think those are the biggest ones. And then we have Berkeley, which is one of my Penguin, and Little Brown Books. Little Brown Books, who are you owned by? Are you also Penguin? Who's Little Brown Books? Hold on, I have a spreadsheet that tells me all my publishers. Who owns Little Brown? No, Hachette. Hachette owns Little Brown. Ha ha ha. So, interesting distribution there. 35 books were considered indie in total. So indies can be self-published. They can also be like independent press. There's some self-published authors who will create their own press, or do very, very small independent ones. And with the indies, my month that I read the most indie books in was March, which is kind of funny because I didn't intend to do it, but usually I do March of the indies, and I didn't actually do that this year. It just kind of happened to be that way anyway. Average page counts. This is a fun statistic that I really like looking at. Obviously 351 to 400 is the most common, but in my data I discovered the most common page counts, which were 368 pages or 400 pages. Those were the number ones. I don't have them on this spreadsheet, but I did the data. It's cool. I didn't read a ton of smaller books, so my why does it have under 101, under 102? That's so weird. That was weird. Something went wrong here. But then, so yeah, 351 to 400, and then reading 401 to 450 or 301 to 350 were the next two in line, and then barely sneaking by is 251 to 300, with the 501 to 600s sneaking in a little bit there. So I read big books. I like big books. Book style, oh, no question, it was gonna be novels were always gonna win. I read a lot of novels, but I did read 18 graphic novels, 15 that were manga or comics, 10 novellas, 1 short story, and 8 anthologies. I probably will be reading a lot less anthologies because I just find I don't care for them that much. They're always like average because there might be a story in there I like and a bunch I don't like and some that are mediocre. I just don't tend to enjoy anthologies. So anyway, publication year. The books that I read the most of were published in 2022, apparently, with 2023 coming up close behind with 42 books that were published last year that I read the year they were published. I think that's pretty dang good. And then 31 were published in 2020. So fun little factoidal. Target audience. This one's a close race. I used to be a hardcore YA girly. I have since grown as a reader and I've delved into more adult. Now, do I still enjoy adult more than YA? Not necessarily, because a lot of adult stuff that I end up subjecting myself to is stuff that I don't enjoy because I am a very ace person, and in adult books, there's usually a lot of like nitty-gritty drama and a lot of sex and a lot of just life as an adult is so depressing and stuff, and I don't like that because I read for fun. I read for bringing enjoyment, and I find a lot of adult books that are very popular, at least, focus on just like pain, and I'm in enough of that in my own life, so I need the escape. But I did finish out the year with 132 young adult books versus 129 adult, and I read 18 middle grade. I don't tend to read a lot of middle grade. Again, some are great, some are not. It's whatever. Genre-wise, so what I did this year is I combined all the first and the subgenres, the main genre and subgenre together to give me a better idea, because I know it's going to be fantasy. I'm a fantasy girly. That's what I read. But of course it was fantasy romance that I read the most of. 18.3% of the books I read this year were considered fantasy romance. And then in second place, we have 3. We have high fantasy, classics, and contemporary romance were in second place. And then in third place, we have urban fantasy and a fantasy adventure. So not a lot of everything else. Let's see, that's 3 magical realism, gothic, 5 nonfiction, historical romance, paranormal romance, thriller mystery was only 6, hard sci-fi was 7. I'm surprised at my horror, 14. I don't enjoy horror very much. 12 historical fiction, literary, lit fix, 12. 8 paranormal fantasy, dystopians were 10. Well, 19, 10 for sci-fi, 9 for fantasy. We already did that. 4 mythology. Sci-fi romance had 5. Historical fantasy at 17. So fun to look at. Author status, I did read 20 debut novels, which actually I feel like is kind of low, but I guess I probably acquired a bunch of debuts and just didn't read them. We have 137 authors were new to me, and 122 were authors that I have known and read from before. So almost an even split there. With the authors, so these are all the authors, it's a lot. I read the most from my friend Hala, because I read all of Hala's graphic novels. And then I also read from V. Schwab, also tied with, was that thing? No, it's not. No, it is. Kore Yamazaki, which is because I started reading The Ancient Magus Bride. So it's graphic novels, manga, V. Schwab, and then also Brandon Sanderson and Kendra Merritt, another indie author who I absolutely adore. You should all check out her books, were my top authors that I read from for acquisition year. I'm pretty proud of that. 99 books I read were acquired in 2023. 89 of them were acquired in 2022, 46 were in 2020, 2021 had 29, and then the rest were in the years before 2020. So I did a pretty decent job reading what I bought. Now granted, when you see the number of how many I acquired, not bought, but acquired, you will think low of me, but whatever. Series and standalone, I did a pretty even split between standalones and series. 141 series, 132 were standalones, and then I had some companions and interludes there. I started 78 series, which was not what the plan was, but I did. I continued 51 of them and finished 19. I'm really bad at finishing series. And 132 were standalones. I will say the month that I read the most series, that I started the most series, was February with 10. And then I finished the most in May and January. I finished 4 in each of those months. Where did I acquire them from? It is no shock to me that Book Outlet was the reason that I acquired so many books early in my booktube career, because I learned about it and I went nuts. Do I regret doing that? A bit, because I do find a lot of Book Outlet books that I do get, somehow I either don't read them or I unhaul them or I don't like them. I don't know why, but 76 of them that I read this year were from Book Outlet. 33 were from Pango, which is my new obsession. I did have 29 from Amazon, which is not a happy thing for me because I don't like getting things through Amazon, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. 26 books were gifted to me that I read last year, and 22 were from Second and Charles, my other favorite way of getting used books. But yeah, interesting. 10 of them were from conventions. Woo! Star rating wise, it's no surprise to me that on average I rated a lot of 4 stars. For me, it's really hard because a 3-star is like mediocre and I don't care. 4 is like I cared a lot, but I had a couple things that I'm like, it's not quite a 5-star. I am very picky with my 5 stars, I find, even though by this graph it looks like I'm not, because there's 42 5-star reads this last year. So pretty good there. 38 were 3 stars and 36 were 3.5. 27 were 4.5. So I did have a very good reading year. Luckily, I only had 5 1-stars. So that's pretty good. 13 of them were 2 stars. I had 1 1.5 and 12 that were 2.5. So overall on the balance, pretty dang good. I think my best reading month, who was my best reading month? My best reading month for star ratings was September and November. They both averaged out to 4.02, which is pretty dang good for an average. For days spent reading, 101 of the books that I read last year were read in a day. Like I said, audiobook. And I read at double the speed, so that helps. 63 books were read in 2 days, and 50 books were read in 3 days. So on average, but within that 3 days, I'm gonna get books done. This is one of my favorite things, is looking at the audiobook narrators and just seeing who, you know, has the most jobs. But it is no surprise, because I did read a lot of Brandon Sanderson, that Michael Kramer and Kate Redding were the top 2, as well as Christine Vaughan. And I think those are the top 3. Yeah, those are the top 3. But Michael Kramer and Kate Redding read pretty much all of Brandon Sanderson's books. He had his secret projects. I was reading a lot of the secret projects this year. So that's why I read more of Mistborn. Not a surprise. We also had Fiona Hardingham, who's one of my favorites, and Simon Vance, and Steve West. Steve West is my favorite male narrator. So, author gender identity. Now, a lot of this I read predominantly women. That's not a shock to me. I did read 77 men. 6 were by non-binary authors, that's confirmed. 5 were by trans men authors, which is confirmed. 1 that had like multiple authors, so it was multiple identities, was probably anthology. 1 was written by both a man and woman. Now, I take this with a grain of salt because some people don't put it out there about their gender identity. So I go looking just to see, but if it's not like immediately in their Goodreads page or anything, I'm not gonna assume anyone's gender. I mean, I guess I do assume because I have to put them in the graph somehow, but unless it's like explicitly stated, I'm not gonna like track them down and make them come out, because that's not cool. With LGBTQ rep, 157 of the books I read this year did not have any queer rep in it, which is disappointing. We did have, I guess the most were lesbians and gays. So 34 had main gay characters, 34 had lesbian main characters, 27 had bi or pan. We had multiple queers as well, with 18 if there was like multiple POVs and there were different. 4 books had a main ace character, which is sad. 4 had non-binary or gender fluid, and 1 was a trans man main character, and this is all about mains. It said 16 were own voices. I kind of stopped tracking own voices because I find it kind of difficult to define that in certain cases of what makes certain books own voices. So I'm not going to be tracking own voices anymore, just because I'm not exactly sure how to fully confirm that unless the book is like, it's an own voices. When other ones I think, I'm like, well, this could be own voices too, right? But it's not labeled that way, so it's a little confusing. For disability rep, we had 63 books had a main character that was disabled in some way, 30 had a side character, 5 that had a non-prominent / a mentioned character, and 181 didn't have any disability representation. So, I mean, it's not surprising to me, but it's disappointing. I'd like to see more diverse across the board. With our author ethnicities, most of the books I read were white Americans or Canadians. 60.9% were that, and then 53 or 19% were white European or Australians. This is not a surprise to me. The book is dominant, or the book publishing world is pretty dominated, and I'm in America, so the books that I'm going to hear about, unless I'm like really, really trying, are just, I'm going to get marketed that, and that's a fact. I do try to read diversely, but in comparison to the wide amount of books that I own, while I think of myself as having very diverse shelves, whatever I picked up last year, it's just always going to be predominantly white Americans. That's really what it is. So I had 12 which were by Black authors, 8 by Japanese, 3 were Latinx, 9 were BIPOC mixed because I couldn't confirm, 8 were Chinese, 3 were Middle Eastern, 3 were Indian, not Native American, Indian, like from India, 1 Saudi Arabian, I had 1 German, 1 Persian, I can't say with the Spanish, and then Asian of unknown descent. So it's like, I tried to figure out, but again, it's not public knowledge for some people, but I like to try. I think it's, you know, a quarter, it's almost a quarter of the authors I read were not white, which I'd like that to be bigger, and I'm hoping that that number will increase next year. Protagonist genders, we had 114 were were led by women characters, 62 were by men, 98 were both like a man and woman's POV, then 4 of them had multiple identities, so there was like a lot of different identities, and only 1 was a non-binary main character. Again, that I would like to see a lot more. I think I do have more on my shelves to read this year. I just didn't get around to the other ones. Author nationalities, again, I'm gonna read mostly Americans because I'm in America and that's what gets marketed and translated here. Like, there's not a lot of translated books that make it to my bookshelves, at least. But that's because I think a lot of the times translated books are not the genre that I'm reading. Like, I read a lot of fantasy and stuff, and the translated books that I know of are usually like lit fic, and I don't really read lit fic. So there's a few that definitely get in there, obviously. We have, again, British, 8 Japanese, and 9 Australian, Irish, French, Russian, Brazilian, Chinese, New Zealand, Greek, Italian, German, Danish, Canadians. So yeah, I would like to read more that are from across the world. Would you not? Setting wise, this is one of my favorite maps. I love looking at the setting. Now, sometimes this doesn't work well because I read a lot of fantasy, so they're set in fictional lands. But if it's set in this world, then again, in the United States, 84 of them books. 93 were in fictional lands, 43 were set in the UK. But I did read 8 in Japan, 8 were in space or other planets, 5 were in Russia, 3 in Canada, 3 in Norway, 2 in France, 2 in Spain. We had 3 in Saudi Arabia, 3 in Ireland, 6 were like all the world. All the world. They went a lot of places, so I didn't know how to track it. But if we break down in the US map, this is what makes me annoyed, is because I'm so tired of books being set in New York and California. And I knew that they were going to be the biggest ones. But New York won at 15 and California was in second with 14. And then oddly, Ohio and Washington. Washington I kind of get. Ohio had the next one. 6 books I read this year were set in Ohio, and I'm like, what? So, yeah. This lovely number here is the amount of money spent on the books that I read. That is not their value, because like I said, I get a lot of books for free or on discounted prices. So that means on average, per book, every book cost me around $9.33, which, as we know, is not the full price of a book. So, just don't yell at me. Don't yell at me. I did want to make an announcement of which was the gayest month that I read, and that belongs to, I am very proud to say, July, which is my birthday month. And I apparently read a lot of queer books in July. I read 13 in total of July. Now, of that as well, in July itself, how many books did I read in July? So I read 24 books in July, so more than half of them that I read were gay. This is great. For the month that had the most disabled protagonists and stuff was May with 10 books. Then my most expensive month, based on these averages, at $13.20 per book, was April. Yeah, cool. So those are the stats. Those are my stats. It's nice to have this baseline, and then I can look back at when I get to the end of 2024, I can kind of do some comparisons, because I haven't done a lot of year comparisons, tracking as much as I've done. Like, I've tracked things in the past, but I've upped my game of how much I'm tracking. It'd be nice to kind of see where I land and do almost a side-by-side. Maybe, who knows. All right, let's talk about the best books that I read in 2023. Only one per month, which is really, really hard. I will tell you how many 5 stars I read in each month. So if I don't mention the book that you think I probably should have mentioned, it got beat out by what I did. So anyway, January. There were 4 5 stars in January last year. And this was a really difficult one, but I think what I'm basing this on is how much do I still think about that book. And that is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia for Fairies. Of Fairies. Love this book. I'm super excited for the sequel. I'm waiting anxiously for Fairy Loot to release a special edition that matches the one that I have, because I want it. In February, this is an indie book, and actually in February the 2 5 stars I read were both indie books, and it's really, really hard because I really enjoyed both of them so much, but I think I have to give this one to Angels Before Man by Raphael Nicholas. I am still thinking about it. It had no right to have such beautiful prose as it did for what the premise is, and I'm mad about it in a good way. For March, I read only one 5 star in March, and it was a classic, and that was Animal Farm. I really liked Animal Farm. It was nice to read it again after having read it in high school and not getting it, probably, because I was not a smart person in high school. I was very dumb. I'm still dumb, but less dumb. For April, I read 5 5 stars. Again, this was very difficult, but I'm going to give this one to The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty. I love this. I don't know when we're getting a sequel. I need a sequel so bad. So bad. May was probably the hardest month for me to decide. Again, I had 5 5-star reads, but again, I realized that I tabbed this book. It's the only one I've tabbed all year long, so it had to be this one, and that is The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy by Megan Bannon, which is going to sound insane because I also read Yellowface this month and I loved Yellowface, but I tabbed Heart and Mercy. I didn't tab Yellowface, and I am excited for the companion sequel for this as well. June, I read 3 5 stars. This was also, every month was difficult to decide. If there's more than 1 5 star, it was hard. But I decided to go with In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune. I just love this. It was so whimsical and made me cry, and I love it. July, I only had 2 5 stars, and one of them was a reread, so I don't actually count rereads in the stats really, so that actually made it only 1, and that was Speak by Laura Halse Anderson, and that was a very impactful book. It meant a lot to me, so that one. In August, I read 3 5 stars, and I'm gonna give this one to Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brando Sando. I love Tress. I love Tress so much. It was so fun. I really hope that we get like a movie or something for Tress, because it's beautiful. September. Okay, I lied. This was the most difficult month to decide because I had 8 5-star reads in September. But it's going to Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. Just, that book. That book! October, I only had 1, and that goes to Foxglove by Adeline Grace. Apparently that was the only 5-star, which I really like Foxglove. Can't wait for the 3rd one. I'm kind of scared, but we'll see. November, I had 6 5 stars. This was also a very difficult one, but I decided to go with 10,000 Stitches by Olivia Atwater, which also is considered an indie. It's just, the copy I have is the indie copy, so it's an indie. But it has been traditionally published since. And then December, I only had 2 5 stars, and I'm gonna give this to the nonfiction because I'm still thinking about it all the time, and that is Men Who Hate Women, The Extremism No One Is Talking About by Laura Bates, which talks about incels, pickup artists, and like misogyny and stuff like that. It's very, very important and still very timely, and made me go, oh my god, I dated one of these. I dated 2 of these based on the rhetoric that was used in it, because it was like word for word what we fought about, and their arguments was the exact phrase that Laura Bates found when she was undercover in the like incel forums and stuff, and it just blew my mind. Who do I think was the best book of 2023 for me? This is really actually quite difficult. Now, I do have to mention, again, Heart and Mercy is the only one I tabbed all year long. But if I had spent the energy, I probably would have tabbed more. Because Divine Rivals definitely deserves tabs. Angels Before Man deserves tabs. I did write notes. I still have my notes from reading Angels Before Man. So I think it's between those 3 for the absolute #1 book of the year. This is really hard. I don't know! Oh my god. What do you guys think? I think I might just leave it as a top 3. I can't decide. I love all those books for such different reasons too, that it doesn't feel fair to say one of them is better than the other, because they're all really great in their own ways. So, you know what? There wasn't one. How many people are really, really angry at me now? Those are the stats. Those are the books. That was 2023. Let me know how your 2023 went. If you also have a stats video or anything like that, and you want to share it with me, because I love watching stats videos. I love seeing how people track their reading and stuff. It makes me very, very happy. And if you want me to give you a spreadsheet or anything, or help you make one, help you figure out some of the formulas, let me know, because I'm happy to help. I may not have the answers, but I know how to find them. For the most part, not always. Well, that concludes 2023 for me. We're closing the book on it. Yeah, let me know. Do you guys want to see a video going over my entire physical TBR? Because it will make you feel really good about yourself and probably look at me and go, what did you just do? Not gonna talk about my acquisitions or anything, because I'm already ashamed of myself for that. But if you want me to talk about the acquisitions of last year or anything, I will put that in a different video, mayhaps. And yeah, that's it. I'm gonna go now and live with my choices. Bye! Data entry. What just fell? Oh, my laundry. The pipes are currently frozen in our laundry mat, so I can't do my laundry. This year. Woo! We're having problems.